Yeah? Stocks. Anybody else? Anywhere else you come across this word called demat? Yeah, but apart from stocks, what else do you think is an example? Real estate, yeah. So, anything absolutely right? So anything which is in physical form, if I can convert it into digital, that becomes demat. So, yeah, crypto. Anything which is physical, if I can convert it into a digital, that's demat. You've dematerialized it, right? And for many years, dematerialized meant stocks. And then suddenly somebody said, you know what, I can dematerialize everything. And that is the fundamental hypothesis on which the digital world actually acts. My ability to dematerialize any hard asset into a digital asset is the foundation of. So you ask yourself the question, can I change my business? Is my business dematable, if I can use that term? If it can, then I'll guarantee you I can write a software to manage it. And if I can write a software to manage it, I will use the 5 digital forces, and then you will create exponential value for your customers. Right? So the biggest, the cliched term here is the biggest cab company in the world does not own a single taxi. The biggest hospitality business in the world does not own a single property. I'm talking about Airbnb. What did they do? They dematerialized these assets, which belong to different people. They gave a platform where you could just come in and say, this is car number 1, I'm the owner of this, and I'm willing to put it on your platform, which means I can now make it available to you at any time, wherever you are. And Google and others had already dematerialized the maps, right? Actually, the first dematerialization happened on our phone, right? When we grew up, most of you are probably aware of what a directory did, right? Yeah. So we could flip through the directory and figure out, the telephone numbers. I think that's the first thing which got dematerialized when the cell phones came. Because no longer did we need that. We started putting our directories into our... that the human memory started failing is a different thing, right? So today, if you ask me, I know the guy, but let me quickly check, right? So I think coming back, it's really about saying, hey, are we dematerializing all of the assets? If we can do that, then I can track you, I can create exponential value to you at the place because I have data, I'm hyper-connected, and I have the intelligence built to deliver, value to you. So let me switch back and say, if you can, if you look at our lives today, I remember when I was growing up, my dad he used to travel a lot. And at 4:30 in the morning, if he's taking a flight to Delhi, he will say, go and get me a taxi. And I used to run to the corner of the street, hoping that there is a black and yellow taxi there. Otherwise, my dad will get angry with me. I don't know why. But, and I'll bring the taxi home and he'll go to the airport and whatever. And then I realized when I went to Delhi that the taxi stand had a telephone. So you could actually call the taxi and ask them to come to your house. Okay? That's the world I grew up. And today, we can't order a taxi without this because that's the world, that's the real world. How much ever you want the black and yellow cabs, maybe you don't, you still have to do it through your digital companion. The world has changed into digital. And look at the user experience. Running to get a cab from the street end to making a phone call to now with the touch of a button, you can then decide what taxi you want. Do you want a mini car? You want a small micro car? You want a mini van? Everything out there, right? So while we talk about digital, I think every day the platform is more or less the same and somebody is innovating on the user experience. And user experience has become fundamental in the way people design systems today. So in the old days, when you wanted to go and buy a watch, right, you would go to 4 showrooms and then you will say, what features does this have? This has got a date, this has got a time, this has got day of the week, it's got 3 time zones, So those were the features that you looked at and you said, you know what, I'm going to buy this watch after going through 4 or 5 shops. Today, I think most products have got out of that. You don't worry about the feature. You worry about the user experience. Because the feature is just one connect away. You plug your phone to the socket, next morning it's feature rich. Features that you didn't have yesterday has already been downloaded into your phone this morning. Overnight, they did that. The Tesla cars do that, right? You plug it into the socket, the next morning they've actually updated your car software. The Tesla is a very scary car, by the way. Okay? So I should say, when I went to the US, my son has a Tesla, and he's sitting with his hand on the steering. Suddenly he turns this side, and then he's talking to me, and it's mind-bogglingly scary. Because, our generation, I don't think we can handle the Tesla. It's impossible to believe that somebody is actually not looking at the road, and the car is driving at 80 miles an hour. But that's digital transformation. The reason why I say all this is, all this has happened right in front of our eyes. The telephone directory, to the yellow cab, to the way you book tickets. I went to Satyam Theatre to buy Amar Akbar Anthony tickets, and I got Lati charged. You're not going to have that experience anymore in your life. When you tell your son that, he'll say, why would you do that? Right? So I think this fellow has now dematerialized almost everything, right? He dematerialized the directory, he dematerialized the torch, the calculator, the music systems. Everything is now here, controlled by a software. So fundamentally, if you look at what we can do with digital, and ask yourself the question is, what is it that you're doing in your business, and can I dematerialize it? If you can, then we'll write a software. When I say we, there are hundreds of people who can do that. You can write a software to manage that. And if you do that, then you're actually giving an incredible user experience to your ultimate consumer. So let's roll back and say, who is doing all this digital and how are you getting impacted? I said population scale systems. When this country got Aadhaar, and we can talk about the merits and demerits of Aadhaar, and we can write a thesis on that, but that's not what we want to do. Aadhaar has transformed our lives, right? When COVID happened, many people thought that, we can't quite, make it, we'll be under the mercy of many other forces. Quietly, we were having a digital revolution. COVID was actually built right here, in our backyards. It took more time actually to put it on the store than actually they took to build the software. That's how good the engineers were. Getting it on Apple Store and Google Play took much longer than for the guys to actually build the code. But look at what the Aadhaar did to all of us, is to create a population-scale digital transformation program. We were able to launch something like an Arogya Setu. How good or bad it was, we can debate. But the fact that you could do contact tracing and be able to say, hey, you know what, we kind of know which pockets of the country have been impacted with COVID. We are one of the few countries where we can have a digital certificate on our COVID vaccine. I have all 3 of my vaccines on my device, right? It takes you 1 day to get your passport. No country can give you a passport in 24 hours or 48 hours. Impossible. Why? Because it's completely digital. Actually, the technology exists that they can print the passport right in front of you and give it to you before you leave the office. We'll get there. And I read in the papers yesterday that they are launching the e-passports, or the digital passports, which means that, and the infrastructure is just outstanding. So if you take population scale program, whether it's Aadhaar, whether it's CoWIN, whether it's Arogya Setu, whether it's UPI, God, how it has transformed this country. You can buy a tender coconut outside and pay with the UPI. And this is mind-boggling, right? So my brother came to from the US about 2 weeks back, and he was visiting us almost after 3 years. And he was completely bowled over by this concept called UPI. That you could just do this and you could buy a toothbrush or a toothpaste. It doesn't matter what the value was, right? And that digital infrastructure has been built here, fit for purpose. And it works, damn, it really works. We are the number one in the country, in the world in terms of digital payments. It's just unbelievable what it has done. But what it has done is the user interface. It is not just a digital platform, it's the user experience. The guy who is selling coconuts on the street, it is very simple for him. All he needs is to show you that card. Sir, scan பண்ணுங்க sir. Right? And you're done. There can't be a simpler interface, and this is population scale deployment. And trust me, when ONDC happens, it will make it even better. It will make it even better. And if you've not heard of ONDC, it's the Open Network for Digital Commerce, right? And they will make the user interface this simple because it is being targeted for the small and medium, or even the micro and the cottage industry to participate in the digital commerce economy of this country. Why I'm saying this is, look, this is going to be an incredible period for us to grow economically in this country. And all of you who are in businesses, please look at the digital side, because you have a choice of being digital or being irrelevant. Like my daughter says, if you're on Facebook, Dad, you're irrelevant, right? And even